viewers, the big story that we are tracking on the show in a surprising move. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has backed Donald Trump's move with regard to tariffs. He has come out and said that those countries that are trading with Russia should be penalized with additional tariffs, even as global backlash grows. Speaking to ABC News, Zelensky called Donald Trump's tariff threats against nations like India the right idea. Yes, that's what Zelensky said. Now, Zelensky is now bending over backwards to appease Donald Trump. The statement comes just days after Donald Trump announced the so-called second stage of Russia's sanctions, including a 50% tariff on Indian goods, sparking outrage in New Delhi. Well, India has fired back, accusing the US and Europe of hypocrisy, trading billions with Russia while punishing others for doing exactly the same. Many see Zelensky's remarks not as a principled stand, but as a political calculation. In fact, choosing to praise Donald Trump's tariffs in the hope that he will be able to find some sort of solution to a war where Zelensky, frankly, has no options at this stage. Now, even as they divide allies, damage global trade, it seems like Zelensky for now is just cozying up to whoever might write the next check rather than protecting Ukrainian democracy. Well, it's not even about democracy, but it's about the fact that does Zelensky even have any locus standi to talk on this? Does Zelensky have any leverage whatsoever to speak on this issue? And lastly, Zelensky made a phone call to Prime Minister Modi a few days back because he understands that there are very few countries who actually have those back channel lines of communications that can solve the Ukraine conflict, that can find the solution. Alaska summit failed. Zelensky still doesn't have answers. There is no ceasefire on the table. And this kind of rhetoric only damages any prospect of finding a solution. Let's try and connect with my guests joining me on the broadcast, and we'll also get you the big questions that we are talking and we're raising on this issue. Manju Seth, who joins me on the broadcast. We also have Vadim. Mr. Vadim, I'm afraid I'll try my level best to pronounce your second name, and apologies if I don't get it right. Mr. Halushek, who's an MP, International Secretary of the Servant of the People Party. Joining me from Kiev. What's the mood like in Kiev right now? Surely many people believe that this kind of blame game or this kind of statements against India are not going to help you solve the conflict, and most certainly will not serve the interests of the Ukrainian people.
Thank you for the invitation. You did just well with my name, Vadim Halaychuk. I'm from the President Zelensky party, and I am in the European Integration Committee, where we work a lot on overseeing the process that the sanctions which were applied on Russia are actually observed. And as we know well, the EU is now in the process of forming 19th package. Of course, if those were applied correctly, we wouldn't need 19 packages now. If those sanctions which were applied were observed by everyone, we would have had a very different situation. Therefore, I completely disagree with the assessment that the statements made by President Zelensky are against India. They are against the situation, against those countries, against those businesses who help Russia to avoid sanctions. And as we know well, oil trade is the number one source of income for Russia and the number one source of fueling this war. So the way forward would be to apply the sanctions.
Mr. Vadim, are you trying to say that there is nobody trading in Russian oil? And this is going to help you solve the conflict?
Absolutely. Russians will stop only when they stopped. Putin has shown no interest whatsoever in diplomacy. He has made the ultimatum, and regardless of all the niceties...
Putin is not showing any interest in diplomacy because the Alaska summit failed. Let's also be very clear. He walked out without a ceasefire. He walked out without any need to be able to finalize a peace plan. And the summit had the Russian plan being negotiated and discussed. And who can forget that it also had the foreign leaders speaking first. Anyway, let's get in Manju Seth as well on this. Manju, now, this comes after there was an olive branch extended by President Trump. And it comes after some very important messaging coming in from Washington that the India-US relationship is extremely important. And it also comes at a time when there is acknowledgement around the world that India is probably best placed to address the issue. It's not for nothing that you had the French President Emmanuel Macron speaking to Prime Minister Modi on the issue, simply because most of the European leaders understand that they've run out of options and this is their best bet. With the kind of rhetoric coming in from Ukrainian President Zelensky, do you think it furthers his case or dampens the prospect of any peace settlement?
I think you put it very correctly, Gauri, that the situation right now is, I think, a no win-win for anybody. The way things are going, there seems to be a complete, a complete halt on negotiations, and I think negotiations are important. And yes, I know, and I completely agree with the Ukrainians that they don't want their territory to go. But this whole war that was started, and is still continuing after more than 3 years, I think we need to get to the crux of the issue. Why did this war start? Who was responsible? Now, everybody blaming India for it or blaming others for it, I feel is incorrect, because that situation should not have been allowed to arise. That negotiation should have been done at that time, and now, you know, what the president and what the president of Russia, President Putin, is saying is that I have so much land, so he's going to dictate, because he believes he has the upper hand. So I think the way negotiations will now go on will be, and we saw that at the Alaska meeting also, President Putin didn't even agree to a ceasefire. And it's not because India is buying oil from them. I think that linkage, is not at all.
Okay, then let me ask this to our Ukrainian guest on the broadcast, which is that what do you think is the best way forward? Because you have very limited diplomatic options right now. How do you think targeting India, suggesting that tariffs are a good idea, trying to be on Donald Trump's right side, will actually solve the conflict? There is no peace settlement formula on the table right now.
This conflict will be resolved on a battlefield, will be decided on a battlefield. There's no peace negotiations whatsoever, because Russia doesn't want.
Do you think New Delhi will support it with this kind of rant coming in? India has been very, very responsible. It has actually said that this is not the era of war. Go ahead.
Look, we have applied the most efficient sanctions that could be applied on Russia. We have destroyed over 20% of their oil refinery in just a month. That is the only way forward right now. Cause Russia to lose economically to the extent where they would get serious about peace negotiations. And it's not against India or any other particular country that we are making these statements, that we are calling for.
No, you are. I heard the interview, sir. You are. You most certainly are. I heard that interview that Zelensky gave. You most certainly are.
India is a number one purchaser of Russian oil now. If only India cut down in half what Russia would do. They cannot refine their oil at home. They cannot sell it to India and other countries. I am
China
sure
is the
that
number one.
Would be
EU is the largest buyer of natural gas. Again, I said this is nothing but hypocrisy, and you're not really serving your case either. Quick closing comments from Manju Seth on this. Ma'am, as things stand right now, India has not only been very dignified in its response, it's been very responsible all along, whether to the rant that came in from Donald Trump and his administration, whether the messaging that came in from several quarters around the world regarding Russian oil. And I believe it will be the same with regard to Zelensky's rants as well.
Absolutely. I think this double speak that is going on and the double standards being applied are not serving anyone's, not serving anyone. And I'm not able to fathom why India has been targeted. I mean, I'm able to fathom a bit, but yes, I don't want to explicitly state that. But yes, the fact that India is being targeted, being blamed, is something which is not going to, as you very rightly said, it's not going to lead to peace. And as mentioned by the Honorable MP, he believes that it will be sorted out on the war field. Then what are we talking about ending the war? If it has to be sorted out on the battlefield, if that's the only way, then I think this war is not going to end anytime soon.
All right.
I believe it just go on, and I think that's not in anybody's interest, but that is for them for the players or people involved in that war to take a decision and take a call. But I do believe that targeting India really needs to stop.
I think there's one thing I can most certainly say. The war will or will not end. That TNC will most certainly not be decided by Mr. Zelensky and his comments, simply because he doesn't have any leverage. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me. And well, bottom line on this issue, viewers, is that Volodymyr Zelensky actually has no leverage right now. He is waiting for things to pan out and is hoping that being on the right side of Donald Trump and his administration will allow him the possibility and the prospect of ending this war, which has been going on for 3.5 years. But this is a reality check for him as well. The Japanese Prime Minister resigned even after he signed a trade deal with President Trump. He bent over backwards, but Trump didn't blink. And then there were these fresh tariffs that Japan had to face. Well, that's a reality check that President Zelensky should keep in mind, that Ukraine can keep praising Trump and keep talking about how the 50% tariffs that the Trump administration has come out with is a right idea. But what he doesn't realize is that the entire European continent and all European leaders understand that if there's one country that does have leverage and does have the prospect of speaking to both sides, it is India. It is in New Delhi which actually has those back-channel lines of communication. Should Zelensky be straining them? Should Zelensky be testing them? Well, that's a question that Kiev and Ukraine should be asking its president.